What's up, guys? Welcome back to our podcast, A Court of Heaven and Hell. I'm Lauren, aka Heaven.
And I'm Ellie, also known as Hell.
And if you don't already know, we are a book podcast that focuses on different romantasy series and novels. Today, we will be continuing our coverage of A Court of Wings and Ruin by Sarah J. Maas with chapters 64 through 72. Like always, the episode will include plot summaries of each chapter, as well as discussions about characters, events, foreshadowing, world building, themes, and more, before we finish off with any possible theories and Maasverse connections. Last week, we talked about the battle against Hybern, the death of the Suriel and Ianthe. One is good, one is so sad. And then Elain got abducted right before we took off. So now I want to go ahead and give a spoiler warning. We are fully diving in, so we may need to speak about the other books in this series. If you have not finished all 5 books in the ACOTAR series, then you'll want to save this video and come back when you're done. We will eventually be talking about other books in the Sarah J. Maas universe, but I'll give another spoiler warning before we start.
Please see our show notes for content and trigger warnings. We are an explicit podcast for adults. Check out our past episodes. We have deep dive into the rest of the Sarah J. Maas universe, as well as other popular romantasy novels. Lastly, take some time to rate and review us. If you're watching this episode on YouTube, make sure to like and subscribe and let us know your thoughts in the comments. And now let's get into our second to last episode of Wings and Ruin.
Let's do it.
Starting with chapter 64. With the aftermath of Elain being taken by the cauldron, tensions are high and everyone is stressed. Feyre is determined to get her back, so she uses her shape-shifting powers to turn into Ianthe. She uses one of Azriel's siphons to make Ianthe circlet with the help of a Fey blacksmith. In her disguise, Feyre and Az set out to save Elain and winnow right outside the King of Hybern's war camp and begin walking into it. Chapter 65. With no issue getting into the King of Hybern camp disguised as Ianthe, Feyre makes her way into the heart of it. The camp is worse than the Court of Nightmares and has a few children of the Blessed there as hostage. Drakkon runs into her and he immediately knows it's Feyre and gives her intel on where Elain is. They quickly find her, Azriel frees her, and cloaks them in his shadows. On their way out, Feyre wants to save the one girl who is still alive from the children of the Blessed. They are almost to the edge of the cliff when they see the girl that Drakkon left, but the King of Hybern appears and shoots Feyre with an ash arrow. Feyre is overrun by the Hounds, and all of a sudden, a familiar roar comes out of nowhere, and it is Tamlin. She has to finally fly and get airborne to escape, but she's unsure if her training is enough. As Tamlin is holding off the Hounds, Elain and the girl grab onto Azriel as he makes his escape, but a Hound broke free and ripped part of his wings. Feyre runs to the edge and feels a wind of spring lift her up and successfully escapes with flying. They make it back to Prithian's camp and have a sweet sisterly reunion with Nesta. Chapter 66. Clyce's army arrives to join the war camp, and Mor gives the girl that they saved, whose name is Briar, to them. Mor and Feyre make up from their fight from last week, and Mor comes out to Feyre, saying she prefers females. She explains why she hasn't told anyone, and Feyre supports her. There's word that the Hybern army is on the move and is headed to the human lands. The allies all gather and discuss what is to be done. The ones who can winnow are going to warn the humans and bring them to the summer court for safety. Amren drops a bomb that she finally has decoded the book and has found a way to stop Hybern's entire army. Chapter 67. All 4 maid women are going to have to be there with the cauldron to stop the army, so they decide it's best to go into Hybern's trap. Before that happens, the Fae who can winnow get out all the humans in Hybern's direction. Everyone's magic is basically depleted, but Feyre has one more task to do in secret. She decides to leave while everyone is sleeping to go finally obtain the Ouroboros from the Court of Nightmares. Chapter 68. Feyre arrives to the mirror and looks in. At first, she just sees herself, then she sees a beast with fur and scales in the corner. She thinks it's a monster from the mountains, but quickly realizes it's actually her inner self. She takes the mirror to the bone carver, who tells her he actually didn't need it, but she did. Feyre is furious and asks why, and he replies that he is wanting to see if she was worthy, and she is.
Chapter 69. Preparing for battle, they make their way through the human lands towards Hybern. With everyone gathered and ready to go, Rhys gives a heartfelt speech addressing each member of the inner circle and being thankful for the time he was given with them. Then they head off to battle. Meeting Hybern on their chosen battlefield, Hybern has been waiting on them. The Illyrians, led by Cassian, will be the first line of defense and accompanied by the Peregrines. The court armies were also lined up and prepared to march in once given the orders. No one moves at first, with both sides trying to tackle the other with magic. Feyre then gives Rhys her mating bond present, lifting the glamour she'd been holding in place to reveal the bone carver and Briar. Rhys is shocked, but then reveals a present of his own. lifting his glamour from the Weaver. Both armies are shocked by what lays before them, and the otherworldly entities release themselves upon Hybern. Chapter 70. As their secret weapons attack, Rhys gives the signal by misting part of Hybern's army, and the rest of their forces jump into action. Amren and the sisters wait for Rhys to tell them to head to the cauldron. Hybern's defenses don't go easily and put up a brutal fight. Just when it seems like they are losing and may not be able to accomplish their goals, Autumn and Spring show up with their High Lords and Grayson's human army, as well, being led by With Jurian's inside information, Eris's brothers are able to attack the caches of Febane, and the tide starts to shift. Amren and the sisters use the distraction to go find the cauldron, stepping onto the battlefield. Following a path made by the Weaver, they seem to be making their way in until Nesta falls to the ground screaming out for Cassian. Right after, Hybern attacks with a blast from the cauldron, incinerating everything in its path directly where Cassian had been. Then they strike again, but this time in a different place, hitting the Bone Carver. Chapter 71. With all hope seeming lost, their armies have taken major hits, and while they keep fighting, they don't seem to be able to win. This only gets worse when Hybern reveals the other half of its army coming in by the sea, locking them in between the two sides of these forces. Amren says they need to retreat, but Rhys tells them to continue trying to make it to the cauldron while they fight. If everything goes south, he wants Feyre to run. Feeling hopeless, Feyre comes to the realization that this may be the last time she sees everyone, but she has to go if she has any chance at stopping Hybern. Cassian says a final goodbye, but as he is about to take off, help comes for them. Grabbing Feyre and flying up, a large aerial legion and armada are revealed, eclipsing even the size of Hybern's army. Drakkon flies up to them, explaining how they knew to come and revealing that only half the armada is theirs. The others are being led by Vassa. She was found by a human man who came to help his daughters and later joined by Lucien, who directed them here. He sails with his 3 personal ships being named after them and leads the rest of the army on the Nesta. Chapter 72. Nesta is moved by her father's actions and cannot take her eyes away from him. Rhys introduces them to Drakkon and asks about Vassa, who then attacks Hybern's armies as a firebird, breaking through their lines. Rhys comforts Feyre and tells Drakkon that Jurian is there fighting with them. Drakkon gives his legions over to Rhys, telling him to command them. It's time for Feyre and Amren to make their way to the cauldron, but Nesta demands they use her as bait to lure the King of Hybern away. She involves Cassian, needing him as a protector, and he agrees to Rhys's displeasure. He says no, but Cassian implores him to let them do this for him after everything he has sacrificed, and if not for that, as a thanks for the kindness that his mother showed him. Rhys finally agrees, unhappily. They set off, and Rhys then winnows Elain to the farthest reach of the camp before saying goodbye to Feyre and jumping into battle himself. Feyre shields herself and Amren, and they head to the cauldron. All right, guys. So much happens in this stretch of chapters. So let's go ahead and get into our character and event discussion, starting with getting Elain back from Hybern.
Last week, Elain is taken and everyone is absolutely freaking out, especially Nessa, Feyre, and Azriel, her closest people. Mm-hmm. And Feyre has a little cute moment where she remembers when Elain bought her paint back when they lived in their cottage, and Feyre couldn't even buy things for herself at the time. And she was like, no, I need to go save my sister. She has like a heart of gold. I'm going to go get her.
Yeah. I think it's important to just, because a lot of people will like hate on Elain because of how she treated Nesta, how she treated Feyre, which is accurate. She did also participate in the same behavior that Nesta did. But Elain did always have this little, like you said, like sweetness and kindness to her. And her heart was in the right place for most of it. Yes, they all could have done more in that situation, the dad and both sisters included. But this just shows that Feyre doesn't necessarily have that same feeling about Elain that I've seen a lot of other people have.
A lot of people really hate on Elain.
Yeah.
And I'm like, why though?
When people say she's boring, I'm like, yeah, she hasn't really had a chance to shine yet. I'm hoping that gets rectified in her book, but I don't hate her. People really don't like her.
People really dislike her. Yeah. And I've learned that from when we said that Elain is like Alice from Twilight. People are like, that's disrespecting Alice.
Don't get me wrong, I love Alice, but
I really think Elain's story is going to be cool. And we get just little pieces of her and ACOTAR that I'm like, no, I really think whenever we get her book, is going to be really good. And all these people are going to be like, I love Elain. I've always loved Elain. I was like, no, y'all didn't. I saw you
Yeah.
online.
Yeah. I get, like, to a certain extent why Alice and Elaine are different, but also, like, we weren't saying they're the same exact people. First of all, we were joking. But second of all, yeah, people really don't like her. Posting that definitely revealed that to me. And I was like, damn, like I said, I always thought Elaine was bland, boring maybe, but I never hated her. I never was like, if anything, I was indifferent about her, but people really don't like her. And I'm with you. I think that her book is going to just really change that, especially because once everybody sees what Asriel sees in her, because everybody freaking loves Asriel and everybody hates
Everyone
Elaine.
loves
So
Asriel.
I'm like, he sees something in her and he loves more too. So that's the type of girl he sees something in her, because that was the biggest thing was like, Elaine is not Alice, or Moore is Alice. And I'm like, okay, they both have like attributes of what we were saying. But yeah, it's just really interesting. I can't wait to find out if I live to see the day.
Back to the storyline, Feyre comes up with a plan and decides to turn into Ianthe using her shape-shifting power. And it's a bit of a risk because she's not sure if the King of Hybern's army knows that Ianthe kind of died.
Yeah, that's true.
So she's like, it's fine. I'm just going to take the risk. And she goes as far as literally like using one of Asriel's siphons for her blue circlet that Ianthe always wears, and even go to a freaking blacksmith to make her jewelry that she wears and stuff like that. She's trying to be like accurate. It's giving accurate, screen accurate cosplay.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. They put some effort into it, but they're able to turn it around quickly.
Asriel's to go with her because, first of all, he might have a little thing going on with Elaine. And also because he's the one whose power is like basically shadow. So he's able to be invisible pretty much, or make his way through the shadows without being detected.
Yeah.
Rhys gives her a little bit of a pep talk to support her, and they make their way into Hybern's camp.
It's so funny because in my mind, as I'm like picturing this, Feyre is literally Ianthe, but Rhys like kisses her and looks her in her eyes, puts his forehead to her forehead and gives her this pep talk. And I'm just like, what weird imagery. I know you know it's Feyre, but doesn't he hate Ianthe? Imagine kissing her and putting your forehead to hers and giving her a pep talk. I don't know, and that was so weird to me. I was like, why didn't she change it to Ianthe after they were ready to go? And maybe they did. Maybe I misread it, but that's what I was picturing. I was just like, this is weird.
I'm uncomfortable now.
Yeah, I was not the head-to-head, like, forehead kiss with Ianthe. So that being said, they go ahead and they make their way into Hybern's camp. And now the infiltration process begins. So Feyre just wanders in, but as she like gets in immediately, the first thing she notices is the children of the blessed are like hung up the way that they were under the mountain by Amarantha, and they've been tortured, but she notices that one of them's still alive. So of course, like Feyre being who she is, I can't leave her here, which I mean, if you're able to get her out, it probably is the right thing to do. So Feyre is now, I got to add this to my list of things to take care of. And she walks in, and remember, they tried really hard to get it on point, but everything is slightly off for how it's supposed to be with Ianthe. Immediately, the first person she runs into is Jurian, and Jurian, boom, you're not. He realizes what's going on. He clocks it quickly. He looks at the siphon. He looks at her. He like talks to Asriel. I know you're there, Shadow Singer. And so he starts telling them like, this is what you need to do if you want to get out of here. This is where your sister is. The King of Hybern's been looking for you. Play along with me. Ianthe's been trying to come on to me for weeks now. So really play up the thought business, because that's all that Ianthe was about. And so Feyre leans into it, and they're able to get to a point where Jurian then tells her like, look, this is what you need to do. Get your sister out. He was like, but keep a dagger on you, because if things go south, you do not want to get caught by this dude. It's not going to be pleasant for you if you get caught. And she's okay, but also I'm not just here to save my sister anymore. Like, I need to save that girl on the cross over there. Can you help me do that? And Jurian, we know, has a soft spot for humans. So he's like, okay, you should probably leave her, but I'll do what I can to help you. So they head out, they break Elain out, they head to this clearing, they get there, and this girl's just in the clearing. Like, Jurian's nowhere in sight. He's just left this girl in the clearing. And that's when shit starts to really just go sideways. One thing I want to point out is that Elain seems real happy when Asriel shows up to save her. So I'm going to say, oh my God, I can't believe you came for little old me. Oh, I was like, okay. As they're getting ready to take off, who shows up? The King of Hybern. He realizes what's going on.
Of course.
Yeah, he realized what's going on. He's got his hounds. He's got his ash arrows. They start attacking them, and shit does not look good. And then all of a sudden, surprise, actual surprise, who shows up to save the day? Fucking Tamlin. Tamlin shows up in his beast form. He starts fighting off the hounds, like literally gets them out of there. He's even to the point where it's like Asriel's, look, Feyre, this is the fucking moment we've been waiting for. This is your Nephel moment. Get your ass in the fucking sky.
Period.
Like, we gotta go. And she's like struggling. You gotta think, this girl's depleted. They've been fighting for days. Her magic's almost gone. She barely has mastered flying without that like inclusion. And she manages to get up in the sky, but Tamlin has to give her that little breeze that helps get her airborne, and then she's able to fly off. But not before a hellhound attacks Asriel and takes his wings down. But Asriel is a fucking badass, and he's Elain of all people, kicks the fucking dog in the face and gets the dog.
Period. Yeah, hold out for Elain, y'all. Okay? Seriously.
Yeah. Let's not forget, coming up next week, she is the one who really sneak attacks. So she kicks the dog off. Asriel is able to keep airborne, even though his wings are all messed up. And they get far enough away that they then winnow into camp, and they're back. And everything's not okay, but they made it out, and they've got Elain.
The first time I read this book, I was gasping at Tamlin being the one to come and fucking save them.
Yeah.
And for me, I still don't like him, but
No.
he needs to do a lot more for me to even consider not hating him.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. He did come through. Shout out to him.
Yeah.
Glad he did it, but I still don't like him.
I will say, like, one good action obviously doesn't erase a ton of bad actions.
Right.
And it's not taking accountability for what you did. It's not apologizing for what you did. But it is a little bit of a redemption in the step of, okay, he's trying to make amends in a way for what he has done or what he's been responsible for. Because even though he wasn't the one who per se sold her sisters out to Hybern, he was still a part of that. And I feel like him saving Elain is like his little, okay, I got her in this situation. Like, I'm going to do what I can to get her out. So it is a step, and it is like a good thing. But I just think that acting like it negates all the other things that he's done up until this point, especially with the fact that he has not taken any sort of accountability or apologized, or all he's done is go even more down the hole and call Feyre a whore and say all this terrible shit about her that isn't even true because he was mad. Like, he hasn't owned up to any of that yet. So like I said, it definitely is a good thing. And obviously later on, he shows up in another big way and makes like a big like thing that changes the tide of the war for them. So that's all great. And I'm not about to sit here and take away from that. But at the same time, yeah, I'm also not about to sit here and act like that just makes everything else that he's done okay. He's still got a lot of growth to do. And I hope that he does that. I hope that there is some redemption for him in later books, because I feel like a lot of people really want that. And I don't necessarily care. It's not, I don't not want it. I'm not going to cry if Tamlin doesn't get a happy ending. But at the same time, that would be interesting to see, especially with the whole Springport and Elain connection that I know is going on there in some way. Like, I'm not one of those people who thinks that they're mates or anything like that. But like that, yeah, that crazy theory, it's not for me. But I do think that there is an unexplicable connection with the Spring Court. There's even another moment later in here where Feyre is talking about Asriel and Elain standing like face to face, and she's like talking about painting them, and she's like Spring's eternal light shining behind Elain. And it's like, she keeps getting compared to spring and called spring and like all flowers and blooms. There is some sort of connection there, whatever that's going to end up being, but I don't know. I'm here for Tamlin getting redemption, but first I need him to take accountability. That's all I'm saying.
Period. I'm Also on the board of I honestly don't care if he gets a redemption arc.
But back to the fun couple here, okay? Azriel is keeping Elain like super close. I thought this was so funny. When they get back, like he doesn't just put her down. He's like holding her. His wings are all torn up and ripped. And she's still shackled in her chains. And he's just like holding her and won't let her go, won't put her down. And I was just like, oh my God.
Do I love Azriel? I was going to say earlier, when we were talking about like how Elain has so many haters, I seriously don't think I've ever really seen Azriel hate comments. I really don't see them ever.
Yeah. Like I said, we've done a couple polls.
Not controversial.
We've done a couple polls and he always wins. Which I think is funny because this dude is a torturer, assassin, spy master.
Right.
But he's just got, like you said, a heart of gold. Azriel is pretty much unproblematic. He's still morally gray, but I don't know. He's super cute.
I love Azriel.
Yeah.
He's grown on me so much. I'm still a Cassian girly forever, but Azriel's really up there for me. I love him.
Yeah.
But I don't love him in the way that I love Cassian. It's like a different tier. Because like with Cassian, that's my man. But with Azriel, oh my gosh, he's so cute.
Yeah.
Just my different relationship.
That is so true. I do love Azriel. And the first time I read these, I didn't think he was like as big of a character, and I guess he isn't, but like the moments that you do get of him, like he really shines through. His personality shines through. So yeah, and the way that he was like so protective over Elain, and like he's the one who realized that she was missing and he won't put her down. And then when he finally does put her down and she gives him a little kiss on the cheek, I'm just like, oh. It's so hard for me because I still love Lucian too, and I don't want either of them to get hurt. But yeah, I'm just like, we'll see. At least Azriel has Gwen as a backup. But then I'm also like, that's really not fair to Gwen either, because nobody should have to be somebody's backup. I like Gwen too. She deserves somebody who's crazy about her. I don't know.
We find out that the girl that they saved from the King of Hybern's camp, her name is Briar. If you want to hear theories on her, please stick around.
Stick around. Like you said, that'll be fun. That'll be juicy. And this part just made me laugh so hard. But Nesta's so thankful to Feyre for going to get her favorite sister that she actually hugs her and shows her physical affection. And like, Nesta, like, that's a big deal. Okay. Nesta don't just be giving out hugs for free. She's not from the South. She's not like, free hug sign. She is keeping her shit close to her chest. So the fact that she like just yanks Feyre up and pulls her into a hug is so cute. And we said it before, and I'll say it again now, like Nesta has some really great character development in this book before it bottoms out again and then goes back up. So this is the good part of the journey for her.
Yeah, I high-key love Nesta in this book.
Yeah, she definitely gets way better.
Really good moment. Yeah, and then of course bad shit has to happen again and really traumatizes her. But she gets back to her baseline after Silver Flames. But
yeah, definitely. She the girl goes through a lot. I'll give her that. From the moment she becomes Fae, shit is all over the place for her. So I do feel for her in that regard. But yeah, one last little cute moment that they all have is that the Archon sisters so happy to be back together that night. They like all sleep together, like holding each other. They used to when they were just in that cottage and that one bed and they all had to share and sleep together and they hated each other and would fight, kick each other in their sleep. But she says that this night they all hold each other instead and are just thankful to be together before shit hits the fan because boy, the shit hit the fan after that. They wake up the next day and Feyre is still pretty like shaken up over the whole experience of going to save Elain. But more than anything, she's just freaking shocked that Tamlin stepped in and helped the way that he did. She was not expecting that, even though he said he was spying on Hybern. They then got screwed over by him in the last battle because the Hybern told I don't remember what happened there. Did Hybern tell them where they were going to be or something that Tamlin did that put their troops in like the wrong place or whatever? But then when he reveals that he's actually on their side at this, Feyre's kind of shaken up about that and surprised by that. And we just, at this point, we have nothing left to believe other than Jurian's cover is blown and Tamlin's cover is blown. So I don't know what's going to happen with them, but obviously the King of Hybern saw them fighting and helping us, and there's no other person that could have helped us escape the camp. So it's probably they can't go back now. And that does come back in a big way when they reveal themselves in the middle of the battle later.
So if you remember from our last episode, Mor and Feyre got into a pretty big fight because Mor felt like Feyre was lying to her when she went to go visit the Suriel and not tell anyone. But they finally make up here, and Moore reveals a secret to Feyre that I don't think she's told anyone before. And she reveals that she prefers females. Ooh.
Yeah. Yeah, I think Amryn knew just from the little comment that she made last week, but I don't think it's
Right.
from Moore telling her, because Moore
Okay.
like really explains things in this like stretch of chapters, and she's just, it's not only a secret that I've kept because I don't like, I'm afraid to tell people. This is like my literal livelihood, because if her family, from the Court of Nightmares, are to find out that she is bisexual but leans towards women, like she most likely will never marry and have children with a man, basically, they will kill her just for the fact that she cannot continue the bloodline for them. And that's like a huge like thing. So to protect herself, she's actually done that. And she said that the reason that she didn't just tell Cassian and Asriel 500 years ago when that whole thing went down is because she was like, if my father found out, Eris and the High Lord of Autumn, Baron, and her father would have like literally held her down while Eris like basically sexually assaulted her, just to ensure that she got married and had children with him, because that's like how shitty and terrible her family is. And we already know Baron's a piece of shit too, so it doesn't surprise me for a second that he would join in on that. While I think Eris might have a little bit of pause, I really I think that might have something to do with, I don't know. The whole Eris and what went down at the border thing, that's still very confusing. But what gets me in this
Really
part
confusing.
is she says that when Asriel found her at the border with the note nailed into her womb, she said she could tell he was about to like profess his love for her. And so she just turned around and walked away. She's, oh, I can't talk about this, and just leaves, and then never brings it up again for 500 years. And it's, what the hell? That's a really interesting way to handle things. I get it. It's a tough thing to talk about, and I would never tell somebody about how to like come out. But that's just when you say, look, as I love you, but I'm not in love with you, and I don't think I'll ever be in love with you. So that was her moment to just say that. You didn't even have to admit your sexuality. Just tell the man so he's not pining after you for 500 years. And she does admit that to herself, but it's a little too late. Like, what the hell? But anyways, she did have a relationship with one of the older human queens, like not the current one of their bloodlines, whose name was Andromache. And Moore ended up leaving her because, like Moore's situation, it was very imperative that the human queen basically got married and had children and carried on her line. And so Moore had to leave because she didn't want to see her like be with another person. And when Moore got back to Prithian, the wall was built. And so Moore couldn't get back for a really long time. And by the time that she was able to make it back to her, she had 5 kids and was married, and Moore didn't want to break up the family. So she just left her be. But she recognized her when they were at the meeting in Court of Mist and Fury, because the Golden Queen, who met a very unfortunate end, was actually her descendant. Just really sad, actually. But
This is like a theme in a lot of romantasy books sometimes, but like when the tragic love stories of, oh, one person's immortal, the other person isn't.
yeah.
That shit sucks. I can't. I don't know how that is. Obviously, I'm not a 500-year-old immortal fae,
Yeah.
but
It's the way
probably is not fun.
it's the way Twilight was like, it's okay, we'll fix it. We'll have Jacob imprint on this girl who's gonna live forever. And then we'll have Bella turn into a vampire and everything will be fine. Everybody will live happily ever after.
Everything's fine. Everything's fine. Now they're still alive.
Everybody's just alive forever because of the way that shit goes. So yeah, that's one way to do it. And there's a few more things about the whole Moore reveal. And again, we get she says this time, she says, I have the gift of truth, but my whole life has been a lie. Okay. Interesting.
Side eye.
Very interesting.
I don't know what the fuck that means. Girl, that shit was in there on purpose.
Yeah.
Like, that has to mean something.
Like we've said earlier, keep your eye out for theories. It's going to be a juicy theory section this time. But it's just truth in what that means and what all of this is like very interesting to me.
Mm-hmm.
And then this is the thing that made me side-eye more, pretty much more than anything, is, and it basically it ties in with what I was talking about earlier about how like her not just being honest with Azriel. You don't have to tell him your secret if you don't want to, but you just have to let him down. You just have to tell him it's not going to happen. And I slept with Helion just to remind Azriel that it's never going to happen. And it's, first of all, you demean yourself when you do shit like that. But then also just tell the man you're stringing along other dudes. He's still pining after you. And she says that she thinks that Azriel knows that she is into women more than men. And it's so he gets confused when she takes men home, because I can handle the fact that you're bi and that you prefer women, but I don't understand why you would sleep with other men if you wouldn't sleep with me. And it's because she likes to have sex with guys, but she doesn't want to be in a romantic relationship with guys, which is totally fine. But just tell the man. Like, at this point, I don't understand this. This is the kind of miscommunication trope that just makes me want to pull my eyes out of my head so I can't breathe anymore. Because I'm just like, why? Just tell him, sorry, I'm not interested, and everybody can move the fuck on. I do not understand this. I don't get it. It's messy. It's messy and it's not cute.
I don't even know my opinion on this, because I know a lot of people have an issue with like how Sarah J wrote more coming out. But I'm like, if you don't want to tell Azriel like the real reason, like, that's so fine. I think she has a super valid reason for not wanting to tell people. I don't think Azriel would use that information against her ever. But again, there's still questions about like more Azriel era situation. So maybe she doesn't trust him. That's definitely a possibility. But you could just at least just be like, hey, I know like we're close, but I don't think that's ever going to happen between us. I feel like that's just a decency and like a respect that you should give someone. I don't know. Because I'm thinking of this like from my POV, where I'm like, okay, my sexual orientation is literally Moors. I prefer women basically in all aspects, but I do like some men, very minimal.
Yeah.
I like my fiance and like a few celebrities. But it's okay if I'm her and I have this dude that's been obsessed with me for centuries, literal centuries. I would tell him, hey, I'm not interested.
It would have been happened.
It would have happened almost immediately.
If I liked dudes, if I was totally straight and heterosexual and into men, and I didn't want to be with this dude, and I could see him pining after me for centuries, I would just be like, hey, look, I love you. You're like a brother to me. This is not a line I'm ever going to be comfortable crossing with you. So I just want to let you down easy, because I do love you and I do care about you.
Again, it's even if you don't want to come out completely and tell someone, at least just be like, I'm not interested. And you don't have to give a reason why. It's okay to not be interested.
Literally don't. And you have an out.
Literally, it happens.
You have an out. I'm never going to sleep with Cassian again either for this reason. It's because I love you guys and I would never want sexual relationship to mess up our friendship. And leave it at that.
Yeah. I don't know. It makes me think that either this was just what people had issue with. It was just written really weird and not cool to the bisexual community. It's not a great representation, or part of it maybe is like there's something else going on that like we don't know about yet with like Mor and Azriel. Don't know if we'll ever find out, but hopefully one day we do. And this episode won't make sense in the future, but we'll see.
We will see. There's no way for us to know until we get our hand on the other book. But yeah, it's just weird. Just a weird thing to be. Like I said, the miscommunication trope is popular. It's just not for me. I don't like simple things that can just be fixed by a simple, hey, let's talk really quick. Like I said, you don't have to reveal your deepest, darkest secret. You just be real. That's it. But anyways, okay, let's go ahead and move on. We've settled that, and Feyre and Mor are made back, and Feyre and Mor have made up, and everything's back to normal with them. Feyre is very supportive of her, which is good. She's a good friend to her. But now we've got to get back to the issue of the war, which is Hybern's army is not in the same place where they left it. He is pissed. He is big mad at the Archeron sisters, okay? He feels like, you know how I keep saying like the King of Hybern is 1 step ahead of them, 4 steps ahead of them, 5 steps ahead of them. That is true. But the people that end up like that keep one-upping him are the Archeron sisters. And it seems like he's pissed. And them coming and getting Elain out of his own camp was the last straw for him. Which is grow the fuck up, dude. Okay. You came into their territory, you killed innocent people, you attacked them in the library. Okay, you're not, get over it. But this is just a slight to him that he cannot accept. So now he's moving up his plan. They're headed towards the human world because they know that if they attack there, they're going to come. They're not just going to let them attack the humans and not do anything about it. But at least this time, it seems like Rhys and the other generals understand that this is the goal, so they can plan their way around it. There's not much they can do about it because they know that Hybern is going to be there waiting for them. They know that they're a step ahead of them. They know that they are coming for them. So they're going to be set up in a way that is very beneficial for them. But they still are like, okay, at least we have this knowledge. We can go in knowing that and we can do our best to set it up. They're already at a major disadvantage because their armies are so much smaller compared to Hybern's army. And they don't even know the half of it. A bunch.
Period.
There's literally a whole half of one army coming after they think that they're done. But anyway.
All of like the High Lords who are present, I will mention that like Baron and Tamlin have not really been present of late. They haven't really been present since Baron hasn't been present since High Lord meeting, which he just like,
windowed out of.
Poofed out of. Tamlin, like they know that now that he's on their side, obviously, because of what happened earlier. But he's still not there. So they're still like, oh God, are they going to come help us or not? It's a huge question. But Amren finally figures out how to stop the King Hybern's army using the cauldron. And I know how to do it. Like we have to use a cauldron to basically bind the army to him and use a cauldron to destroy all of them. And you're just like, okay, then let's do it. But the problem is that they have to have all 4 of the maid women who are Nesta, Elain, Feyre, and Amren all present for this. So it's a bit of, oh God. So they're like, okay, it's fine. Like we're going to go into like his trap, but we're going to be prepared.
Period.
So we think. And so during this like High Lord meeting without 2 of them, there's like some disagreement about helping the human in Hybern's path. Everyone seems to be for it except for Callias. Callias is a little bit more, if we're about to go to like war, I don't really want to be using all of our match to help the human. And yeah, so that's problematic. And like Tarquin's the real one, of course. He always keeps offering his home for like refugees and stuff. And he says that we can, like the ones that we widow away, like they can come to Adriata, our house, the Crusada will help, whatever. And Feyre is, what the fuck, at Callias, because she's just one life can change the whole world. And she gives the example of herself. And she was like, if y'all didn't save me under the mountain, y'all be fucked right now,
Ooh.
which is true.
Ooh. Very true.
Period.
And if not only if y'all didn't save me, but if I didn't save you, if I didn't break Amarantha's curse, y'all would be doubly fucked right now, okay? Because Amarantha would still be around,
right?
And Hybern would be there. So it's just, it all boils down to and matters. And yeah, but to be fair, I didn't get the, I don't know. I felt bad because Callias is not my favorite character or anything like that, but I like him. But even Vivian was like, the fuck, shut up. And it was funny, but I do feel like I didn't think he meant it was just okay for the humans to be like killed or whatever. But then at the same time, it's like that decision of should she have saved Briar in the camp or should she have just prioritized getting her sister and getting the fuck out of there? It's like tough decisions have to be made during times of war, but it is just unfortunate that he was the only one that had that thought process and was like, we don't have time to be doing this. And everyone else is, we're going to make time because this is important. And so it wasn't a good look for him. Hopefully that's the last time he puts his foot in his mouth. And then speaking of just like somebody who's got the complete opposite mentality, like ready to do whatever, Cassian comes in with one of my favorite quotes, which is, if I end my life defending those who need it most, then I will consider it a death well spent. Cassian's such a fucking sweetheart, dude.
That's my man.
He's so sweet. I love him. I love him. And this is like why their court of dreamers is just so revolutionary in Prithian, because it's like a lot of other people have this mentality of like classism and elitism and just all this stuff. And then like Rhys and his court are just over here like, we're here for the little guy. Like, and I love them for that.
Yeah. I love Cassian. I love him. Oh my god, he has so many good moments. But so every person who's able to winnow has to go to the human lands and basically tell everyone they find you need to come with me. And they winnow them back to Adriata. They get everyone out. Feyre takes control of the area around the Archeron estate, obviously. And she even sees some families that like she helped out in the past. And some of them are like, okay, like I'll go with you. And some of them are like, the fuck? So Rhys just says, you don't have a choice. Go with us. Deuces. Like, we have to get y'all out. And thankfully they do because King Hybern does come in. But after everyone has helped winnow, everyone is like exhausted as fuck. And Rhys like magic is pretty much depleted. And Feyre, it's not in a creepy way because it's not creepy when I say this, but Feyre's watching him sleep and she's just, okay, I have an idea. And she again leaves the camp without telling anyone.
Oh, girly.
Even though she got in trouble for doing that last week.
It works out. Thank God.
It does work out. But I'm over here, damn, y'all cannot keep a grasp on each other. But
she never learns.
She decides that she's gonna go and get the Ouroboros mirror finally. And when she goes, she has to go to the Court of Nightmares, and it's like a whole trek. There's like 1,000 stairs she has to go under, and then she gets into this creepy little fucking, almost like a cave space. I don't know how else to describe it, but she sees a mirror. It's this huge ass mirror, and she looks into it, and she just sees herself, and she's just, I don't get it. What's the big deal about this mirror? And then she sees this like creature like come up behind her, like in the corner, and the book says it shows her, quote, a massive beast of claws and scales and fur and shredding teeth inched towards the floor. Also, it's black and gold. And she's, what? And then she realizes that it's actually herself, like her inner self, like her true form, I guess you could say, in a way.
Yeah.
And she isn't really scared of it, which is interesting because we know from the Ouroboros mirror that people who look into it typically run away in fear or they go mad. And she's just, okay.
Yeah, no, she stares whatever it is in the face and just takes it like a G. We do find out later that she went through some shit, but the way that the book paints it in that moment is like she just sits there and then they cut to the next morning and she's like fine. She goes back and explains to Rhys everything that happened then later. Because don't get me wrong, she was throwing up and crying and doing all the stuff that we would think she was doing. But then she says she finally overcame it and like she looked in the mirror and accepted every cruel, selfish thing about herself, her own hypocrisy, her shame, her pride and rage and cowardice. And that when she was done seeing all of that, the mirror showed her the good things as well. And it was actually like a very healing process from her that helped her kind of move on from a lot of the guilt and shame she has about Under the Mountain and getting her sisters involved in this life and just everything that's happened to her since she left her home that day.
We had a really long, big theory about the Ouroboros mirror in one of our past episodes. It was one of the recent ones, and we'll make sure to put a link in the show notes if y'all want to listen to it. It's just for the theories portion of the episode, so it's more towards the end. And I'll put like when it starts. So if y'all want to listen to it, go ahead because it's interesting. And the Ouroboros mirror, I feel like might come back. But anyway, so she finally has the mirror. I do have questions of like, how does she get this big ass mirror like out of there? I guess she just like winnows it, but I'm like, I feel like that's like really heavy, like heavier than like an average person. Like it's this big ornate fucking mirror. But anyway, I guess she just winnows it out, but she goes to the boat Carver with the mirror and she's, I finally have this mirror for you. The one you've been asking me for, the one that you said if I retrieve, you're going to help us in the war. And the boat Carver's just, oh.
Wow.
You did do it.
Wow.
And she's like, yeah, what did you need it for? And he was like, I didn't need it. And he says that she did. And that he was just using it as a test to see if she was worthy.
Yeah.
And it turns out she is. And Obviously, later on, he comes and helps out, but that's basically the story of how she gets to Bone Carver to finally help her. She faces her fears in a way, and yeah, good for her.
Yeah, no, like you said, I do think that the mirror is going to come back in a big way. If I'm being honest, I doubt that'll be the last we see of it. The last we see of somebody else, maybe. But yeah, it is a good moment for her where she overcomes, like I said, just the trauma and everything that has happened to her since she's freaking come to Prithian. It's been a journey for her, girl. And so this is just a good way of wrapping up that side of that part of her story, because her trauma is just literally the whole second book is about her like trying to come back from her trauma under the mountain. And then she sees her sisters get thrown in the cauldron and she feels like it's her fault. And then now she's immediately like high lady of this court who's never had a high lady before, and she's getting thrown into war, and it's been a rocky ride for her. So I do like that, since this is her last book really from her story, like she is the perspective of Frost and Starlight, but that's more of just like a holiday
special.
Yeah, exactly. Like a holiday special with a few little important parts thrown in. This is like a good wrap up for her story, and I do the way that Feyre did that. So yeah, so now she's got the Bone Carver, she's got Bryaxis, and it's time to head into battle. When everybody's literally getting ready, and it's super fucking funny because Elain is so different to all of the other girls in this freaking story. And it's so funny to me. Like, Elain is very demure, okay? She's very mindful, very cutesy. She doesn't want a weapon, okay? She doesn't want to wear pants like the other girls. She doesn't want to ride into battle and learn how to fight. I want to garden and stare out my window all day. And it's fucking hilarious. But she literally doesn't want to wear the Illyrian army like gear that Feyre and Nesta have on. So Vavain offers her like a more modest outfit. Like, she's still got pants on, but the jacket's like longer, and so it covers like more of her butt and legs, and so her body's not really on display. And then obviously Nesta and Feyre weapon up, and so do Moore and Vavain and everybody. They get all geared up. They're going to actually go into battle. And Elaine, I don't want a weapon. I'm very mindful, very considerate. I don't do that. And Asriel's, look, it would mean the world to me. I can't go into battle because my wings are fucked up. So it would just mean so much to me if you take this here, just so I know that you have some protection out on the battlefield. And Asriel hands her Truth Teller, which is shocking to the core for Rhys and Cassian and everybody else, because Feyre's like mine. Does Asriel often let people like use Truth Teller? And Rhys is, no, I don't think he's ever even let anybody touch that that weapon before. It means the world to him. So the fact that he gave it to Elain is like pretty crazy. And it pays off because
it does.
Some stuff happens. And there is another theory that we have about this. It involves what he tells her when he gives it to her. But he says, it has never failed me once. Some people say its magic will always strike true. Very interesting. It is called Truth Teller, so it makes sense. But that does make me question the meaning of true. This is the second episode in a row where I've had questions about what exactly truth means in these books. I feel like it can have many different meanings. So that's something we're going to touch on a little bit more in the theories portion. So again, if you are interested, make sure you stay tuned for that. It's going to be really good this episode. Rhys gives his meaningful speech to everybody, and we get so many of the popular quotes from ACOTAR in this part. This is where he tells Feyre, even if I had to wait 100 years, I'd wait 100 more if it meant that I got to spend one moment with you.
He says to Asriel that he knows that your found family is really important. And he says to Moore that even the brightest light can grow in the darkest places.
Thrive amongst cruelty.
Yeah.
We've used that quote before, I think.
And then he also does give like a little nod to Nesta and Elain, saying, I don't really know y'all well, but hello.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming.
We get so many popular quotes at this part, chock full of them. And yeah, it's just a really sweet speech, really meaningful. And Rhys has a big heart, man. He loves everybody. And he's like literally about to put his family on the line. Imagine you are going into battle and it's every person that you're sending into war is like your family, like the people you love most in this world, but you have to put them on the line for the good of everybody else. And I think that this is really tough for him and really tough. It's also tough for him because if he could lock everybody away and protect them, he would, but they also were their own free people who also want to help and do this. And they're trained warriors and they're not about to run away from this. Yeah, it's just a really sweet moment. And sad and bittersweet. Especially because him and Feyre really haven't had that much time. And I do feel like Rhys was waiting on her ass for quite a bit of time. Quite a bit of time.
After that moment, we finally get to the final battle. The final battle of the book. Oh my God. Y'all, when I first read this, obviously I read this whole stretch in one go because how can you not?
Yeah.
It was really intense. Oh my God, I love this battle. It gives me a lot of vibes. It gives me a lot of sad parts, a lot of, oh, what the fuck parts, a lot of let's fucking go part.
Yeah.
It's just a lot of emotion.
A lot of emotions.
Starting at the battle, everyone takes their places, okay? Once again, right now, Baron and Tamlin are and their armies and Grayson's estate are nowhere to be found, but they're like, we're here, we gotta go. All the other High Lords are there with their armies, and everyone takes their places. Amren says something like, oh, the first part of war is always trying to get each other's words down. And she was like, it's fucking boring, to be honest.
Yeah.
At first. And so each army are trying to get each other's words down. King Hybern's army is stretched for fucking miles and miles. They said it's just like a sea of black. It's really intimidating, but they're like, you know what, we might have this in the bag. Like Reset and Feyre might have some tricks up their sleeve, but it might not be enough. But we'll see.
They can just get to that cauldron. It might be okay.
The Hybern's words are destroyed first, and with that, Feyre reveals a secret, and she reveals that her mating gift to Rhys is having the Bone Carver and Briar come join them. And he is kind of like, oh my God, when did this happen? And she's, oh, I did it last night. And she shows him like an image, like a mind image of the new tattoo in her back. That was because of the bargains that she had to make. And Rhys is, okay, go off, but I also have a surprise. And he reveals the Weaver. The Weaver's there. And me, girl, when I was reading this, and I was just like, damn, I'm like, I don't know how I didn't remember this, but last week we were like, why was Helion like popping up when the Suriel was about to die? We were like, that's random. But now it makes sense because Rhys sent Helion to be the one to make the bargain with the Weaver for him. And basically the bargain was like, come help us fight. We will get rid of your confinement. And of course, the Weaver is okay.
Yeah.
But he was there because of that. So it makes more sense now.
Yeah.
I was like, oh.
Yeah, I'm not surprised I don't remember that, to be fair. I honestly just, in my mind, was like, oh, Feyre got the Weaver to join too, for whatever reason. I didn't even think about that, if I'm being honest. I clearly remember how she got the Bone Carver and Briaxis, but I was just like, oh, the Weaver joins in at some point. I wasn't even thinking about that.
Yeah.
Like, I was like, why the fuck is Helion out here? Helion, like, why is he out here? But it does make sense, especially because Helion is the one who would be able to break her confinement as he is the Spellbreak. Yeah.
The battle starts with the two death gods, Bone Carver and the Weaver, and then Briaxis, who we still don't even know what the fuck they are. They start taking out some of the King of Hybern's armies. They look a little panicked because they're like, who are these people? Should we be worried? And you should be. Like, they're terrifying, really powerful creatures in Prythian. Briaxis literally shows you your worst fear and you like die. That doesn't sound like fun. The Bone Carver shows up in a different form, and he actually chose a Illyrian warrior in his prime. And so everyone's like, who is this guy? And the Weaver shows up as like her youthful form, like beautiful black hair, pale skin.
The image of just like a regular ass Illyrian and a regular ass young, beautiful woman just wreaking havoc on the other side is like low-key hilarious to me. And it's interesting, too, that the Bone Carver and the Weaver immediately recognize each other, even though they're not in their, like, true forms or whatever. And so they're twins, so makes sense. But very interesting to me and very befitting that they go out together in a final battle. And then Bryaxis, Bryaxis is just, it's been a long time since I've been out of this library. And Bryaxis also gets bound to regular Fae forms. Even though they see like the black clouds and the magic, it's still like a person standing there in front of them. So just imagine just these 3 regular ass like people. And then the next thing, like you said, like your worst fear is just coming and fucking ripping you from life.
We see finally a little bit more of Rhys's power here. He literally just puts out his hand, casually talking to Feyre, and he immediately splits the King of Hybern's army in 2. He takes out like basically the whole center and just missed them. And he's just having a conversation. And Feyre's, oh, okay. Like, where was this? Maybe we needed it a little while ago, but
for me, it's the visualization of like their bodies just misting, and she's like blood and like just everything. Like they don't like turn to ash and disintegrate. Like they mist. Like he like vaporizes them.
Ew.
It's just
so gross.
I don't know.
That's so gross.
Yeah.
And then Claudius is on over there using his fucking ice power, freezing people. More and Vivian are on the field, fighting.
Then their shit is not looking great for them necessarily. Like they're still struggling against this army until the leftover courts that we haven't known what they are or what they're up to just show up. And Jurian's at the helm of the human army, Grayson's army. You got Baron and Eris leading his brothers and the rest of the Autumn Court. And then you got Tamlin, of all people, showing up with his tiny little army. But they're able to all together do some damage. And we find out Eris walks through a portal directly up to where Rhys and Feyre are like watching the battle from above. And he's, you guys look like you needed some help. And they're like, how did you convince your dad to do this? And what the hell? And Tamlin literally drags him out of the house by his neck and forced him to participate in this. And the visual is hilarious, but it works. They got him there. And the Autumn Court actually makes a huge difference because even though Thiesen's medic or tinkerer Nuwan was able to give them the antidote to Faebane, it still has been affecting them in a negative way because even though their bodies are necessarily like warded against Faebane or whatever, their shields and their magic isn't. So the arrows and everything has been able to just rip through their shields. And so the Autumn Court brothers, because of Jurian and Tamlin getting them there, are able to get to all the different carts of the Faebane arrows and stuff and just light them on fire. So that's huge. That turns the tide of the war. And then of all things, like Eris tells them, like, by the way, Jurian and Tamlin want orders from you. Like they want you to tell them what to do. And Rhys gives everybody their orders. They set back up. The Weaver is now making a path for Feyre and Amren to try to get to the cauldron, and Nesta to try to get to the cauldron on Rhys's behest. That's what he has her doing because apparently for some reason she can smell the cauldron, which is very interesting to me because her brother can hear the cauldron and she can smell the cauldron. Okay, but neither of them can see the cauldron. Curious. Anyways, okay. Yeah, she's like smelling out where the cauldron is and like leaving a path of destruction so they can follow her. But right as they're running up, they're making their way there. All of a sudden, Nesta just screams out and falls to the ground. She's like, Cassian. And he's like, the fuck? He gets out of the line real quick and comes down to check on her. And as soon as he's out of the way, a beam of light straight up shoots a laser beam at them. And they just fucking disintegrate everything where Cassian just was. And Rhys realizes, oh, she knew that something was about to happen and she just saved Cassian's life. And he doesn't know whether to feel like he's grateful that she did that, but he's also like, Cassian's not going to be happy that he's the only one who survived that. But it's like, you're more helpful alive than dead, bro. So really, it's unfortunate, but she couldn't save everybody. What was she going to say? Duck? Like what they were all like, you know what I mean? Like I don't know. I don't know. But she had to make a decision and she chose to save you. And so Cassian comes down. He's like, what the fuck? What's going on? And she's just laid out. She could barely sit up. She's really going through it, I guess, probably weakened because the cauldron just put out a great burst of power, which directly affects her and her abilities. And then next thing, the High Lords all reinforce their shields and put everything back up in the area where the cauldron just hit. But of course, it's not going to hit the same place again. So it pivots a little bit and goes and does another death shot. And this time, the bone carver gets caught up in that fire. But it's a little bittersweet. It's sad as fuck. I really like the bone carver. And for some reason, even though he's a Illyrian warrior right now, I still picture him as a little boy Feyre sees when she goes to see him in the thing. But he makes eye contact with Feyre right before he goes, and he just smiles at her. And then he gets taken out. And so it's kind of like, okay, he wasn't afraid. Whatever and wherever he ends up, he wasn't afraid of it.
Period. All those scenes are so good.
Yeah, they really are. It's just banger after banger. Certified bangers.
I literally can't. I love this war scene. I love it a lot too, because we finally have a few moments where obviously we see Nessa and Cassian intertwine a little bit more, especially next week.
Yeah.
I read that today and I was just like, I'm crying. I was just like,
oh,
I can't. It reminded me of the bag you got me, which next week I have to show off because it says like the quote, my only regret is we didn't have enough time. I'm like, I can't. I literally can't.
Yes, I love that. Yeah, that they really, both of them have some really good lines in this book. Okay, so right after the bone carver gets blown up, they are fighting for their lives. It is not looking good. This is when they turn around and the Hybern army is now coming at them from the other direction. It's coming from this way. They're getting sandwiched in between the two sides of these people fighting, and it's just not going good. Their troops are being taken out. They're fighting till the last fucking minute, but they're like, shit, man. All hope seems lost. Until all of a sudden, they hear these horns, these 12 horns blaring in unison. Cassian's talking, and the horns blow, and Rhys just like stops and stills. And he's like, oh shit. And he picks up, carries her into the sky, and he's like, look. And as he looks, he sees Miriyam and Drakkon and their armies coming. But it's not just their armies, okay? It's huge. He says it's thousands and thousands of soldiers, like even more than Hybern's army. And they're coming in on all these ships. And Drakkon flies up to Rhys, and it's like, hey, man, haven't seen you in 300 years. What the hell's been going on? Looks like you could use some help. And they have this whole back and forth, and Drakkon explains that 3 centuries ago, they had some trouble and they had to put up a glamour to keep the island shielded. There's something that's said here that kind of stands out to me and confused me. So I'm interested to hear what you think. But he just says 3 centuries ago, we had some trouble on our borders and set up a glamour to keep the island shielded, tied to so that anyone who approached would only see a ruin and be inclined to turn around. Who is, what is?
I'm thinking.
It's really weird wording.
It's really weird wording. Honestly, I don't know. Because when I first read that, I just thought that, oh, maybe they put up more glamours because of Amarantha. But I'm like, that wouldn't make sense. That wasn't 3 centuries ago.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Or unless it was Hybern. Was he? I'm trying to get a timeline.
I did have a thought when I was reading this, and I really wish I could remember it now. It was something about where I was like, who would have showed up 3 centuries ago? That would have been an issue.
When was okay, yeah, I don't know, because this is post the first war thing.
Well, I was thinking it might be Koshe, but
it could be. I feel like that makes sense as of right now. I'm not really sure who it is. That's confusing. I noticed that too, though.
I was trying to think who would have been around 3 centuries ago. But I'm not even saying that, yeah, I don't know, tied to 3 centuries ago. I don't know, but it is just really interesting to me. I'm not 100% sure. But anyways, because of that, they glamored the island to make it so that way it's like Valaris. When you first roll up on it, you can't see anything. And it just looks like an abandoned island. But that's so interesting because that was able to keep Rhys and them out, even though you would think that they would have poked around a little bit more. So he says it worked a little too well because it kept both friends and foes out. But other than that, it's basically just revealed that they have been in Creatia this whole time. And they heard whispers about the impending war and Jurian searching for Miriyam, which is why they decided to come. And Rhys has to share that Jurian is actually not just helping them or not just like they're in the war. He's actually helping them and he's on their side, which Drakkon's a little bit hesitant about, but he's just like, okay, got it. Give me my orders and tell me what to do. but not before he reveals that the other half of the forces belong to Thassa, which means that on one hand, it means that Lucien accomplished his goal and was able to find Vassa and brought her to the war, which is good for him. So happy that Lucien's back in the story. But even more importantly, he says there was a convoluted story that got told, but she is found by the Prince of Merchants. The sister's father basically found out that the human queens were traitors and had been gathering an army to help fight Hybern. And this is another question for me because it says that he knew his daughters lived in Prythian. Very interesting to me because when he left, Nesta and Elain did not live in Prythian. Only Feyre did. Very confused. And also, to a certain extent, that means that the glamour that Tamlin put on them didn't just not work on Nesta, it also didn't work on him.
That's weird.
So I don't know how he found out that his daughters all lived in Prythian and they were over the border now, but I also don't know, he went to a meeting and that's where he found out about the King of Hybern's plans. Because he found out that they betrayed him, that they were betraying the human lands, he went to seek help, and that's why he never came back. But that is just a little convoluted because it's okay. So the glamour that Tamlin put on him to think that everything was like fine and normal didn't work, which we have questions about Archeron's past, okay? Mom and just how much he knew about the Fae world before all of this happened. There was already questions there, but this definitely added to that. And then how he found out that his daughters lived over there. Did he come back to the house and they were gone? And the servants told him that they had gone to live with the Fae, but then when they went back, why wouldn't any of the people that were working the house have told them, hey, by the way, your dad was here? I don't really know, but that is a big question for me. In a sweeter sentiment, he says he won't fail them this time, that he's done nothing but fail them their whole lives, and he won't fail them again. And then he names his ships after them, and he literally rolls up into battle on the Nesta, leading the charge. And yeah, it's just a super, super sweet moment. I cried.
Oh my God. Yeah, no, the first time I read this, I say this so many times in this episode because these chapters go so fucking hard. But oh my God, when I read this, I literally was like laying in bed. I remember this so well. It was like 2 years ago now at this point. And I remember when we see him pull up in the ships, I was like sobbing. I was not okay. I think I had to put a book down for a minute because I was like, I need a moment.
Yeah.
That was so intense. And of course, he immediately gets like fucking killed. But
it's so sad.
It's so shitty too because it's like you can tell that he's trying to heal his relationships with his daughters, but especially Nesta by him literally having her ship be like the one in front. And also next week we'll talk about it, but they have a little moment together and then he immediately just gets it's really fucked up. It's so shitty. So shitty. But thank you for coming through. We really appreciate it.
It literally changes everything. Right. Between Tamlin showing up with the other courts and then Drakkon and Miriyam and Vassa's ships and everything showing up, it literally changes the tide of the war.
It does. Oh my gosh. So a few more things and then we're done with the event discussions, y'all. But when everyone sees the ships coming, all these people are coming to help them. I feel like a lot of people get like really inspired, and especially Nessa, because she comes up with the idea of y'all need to use me as bait to get the King of Hybern away from the cauldron so that y'all can go in and do what the fuck you need to do. And they're just like, you can't go by yourself. Like, who's going to protect you? And she was like, Cassian will. And he was just like, bet.
He's like, I got you, girl.
He was like, yeah, I got it. And Rhys is super like, no, don't do that. You can't do that. And Feyre also is a little bit uncomfortable with it. But Cassian is like, no, we have to do this. It's the only way that this could work. And then him and Rhys have a sweet moment. At first, it's like a little bit like, because Rhys is, again, telling him, like, you can't go do this. And he's really stern with him. Like, even Feyre's like, I've never heard Rhys talk to them like that before, ever. He has a little issue with Asriel earlier, too. I don't remember if we mentioned it or not, but when Asriel's like, I need to go fight. Like, y'all are getting shit on. And Rhys's like, no, you can't. And he was like, I will literally tie you to a tree. And Asriel was like, I will literally fly away with that tree on my back. So Rhys says, whatever. And then Asriel takes command of the Illyrian army. And that's why Cassian can go help Nesta out. And Cassian basically tells Rhys, look, like, we know what you did for us with Amarantha. You don't talk about it, but we know what you did. And he was like, I need to repay you, and I need to repay your mother for taking care of me and raising me. Oh, it was so cute.
So sweet.
So cute. So cute. Definitely a big moment for them. And eventually, Rhys and Feyre were like, okay, we'll go do this. Y'all go do that. We're going to get this shit done, and we're going to win. And so they make their way separately, and that's where we end this episode.
Yes. Oh my God. Yeah, huge cliffhanger, which is perfect, actually. It's a perfect segue into what's left of this book. Next week is going to be another juicy bunch of chapters. This book pretty much goes balls to the wall till the end almost. But yeah, so much happened. Just a couple things that I wanted to touch on. They are going to come back. At least one or two of them might come back in another way next week or in later episodes. So we get some like more world building, but just like creatures that exist in this world. And the King of Hybern has hounds called the Naga Hounds. And they're basically terrifying beasts that Feyre says must be related to the Naga. They have serpentine faces and they can smell magic. And they're the ones who attack Asriel and fuck up his wings before Elain kicks them off. They're also like, spoiler a little bit for next week, they are the ones who basically tear Briaxis apart. And then also Tamlin has to show up in his wolf form and fight them off. And he's able to hold them off for a while, but eventually they turn on him and give him a run for his money. And he has to portal through a clearing too to get away. So they're pretty vicious beasts, almost demon-like in description. But yeah, so Naga Hounds. And then we also get description of the Winter Army, which is just so interesting. It's so different to all of the other Fae armies. It's like really badass. It's made up of Fae with a wide array of features, basically. So she says people have either white hair or they have like raven hair, which is really interesting because it's like reminding me of the ravens with the Hybern ends. But yeah, she's like, they either have white hair or they have black hair. And then she says it's a wide array of like races, basically. Like they could be anything from like super pale to super dark skinned. We get polar bears in armor, which is definitely giving like Golden Compass or Narnia vibes. If you've ever seen either of those, they have reindeer that pull their wagons, ice creatures. They have little white foxes that bring messages to people. And it's just so cute. Instead of ravens, they have these little white foxes that run around. And then it does say that his army is made up of the most lesser Fae of any of the other armies. It's really interesting. His army is not like this elite force of warriors. It's just like way more mystical and magical, and literally gives me that scene in Chronicles of Narnia, if you've read the books or if you've seen the movie, where it's just like a bunch of like mystical creatures and stuff that like ride into battle. And the visuals are just like so cool. It's like, I want to be hanging out with the Winter Corps army in battle. Like, this is some cool shit going on over here. So I wanted to point that out. And then finally, the last thing, and this could mean nothing, y'all. I could be reading into something here, but Rhys calls Miriyam a witch. He says, tell that witch it goes both ways. When Drakkon is saying that she's going to give him shit about basically not talking to them for 350 years. And he's like, well, that goes both ways. But he says, tell that witch it goes both ways. And what the hell is that? What?
Dude, I noticed that too. I was like, okay, no, that was really weird.
It's a weird thing to say. Like, he didn't say tell her it goes both ways. Tell that witch it goes both ways. That is some very specific wording, boys and girls. Like, make that make sense to me. Because, like, in my picture, in my mind, I'm like, if this is me talking, I'm like, tell that bitch it goes both ways. But he didn't say bitch,
right.
And he's not as sassy as I am. Well, he is. He wants to be. But he says, tell that witch it goes both ways. That is so weird to me. So weird to me. Is
It's really weird to me too.
Miriyam a witch? And does Rhys know what witches really are in this world? Because we know she's made too. And we know that there was this object, this questionable object that was in her possession that we could not figure out what it was. And we didn't know anything about it. And then I go back to 350 years ago when they tied to what does Rhys know that everybody else doesn't know, specifically about Miriyam and Drakkon. And it's even interesting too, because I think this is the first time, if I'm not mistaken, Cassian's never been around Miriyam and Drakkon, which is very interesting because he was around 500 years ago. And Moore knows Miriyam and Drakkon very well. We know that she knows Nefel, she knows all of them. She fought side by side with Miriyam. It's like, where was Cassian? I don't know. But
Girl, I don't know either.
very interesting.
I noticed it though.
Keep your eye out. Yeah, because it's such a weird sentence. It's what?
It's a really weird sentence.
Tell that
I was
witch
like,
it goes both ways.
I even looked up like stuff about Miriyam and I'm like, nothing stood out to me.
Yeah.
But
We haven't gotten as much information on her, but it's just it's like what we do know about her is that she was
she's
human. She was a slave. She got made by this magical object that we don't know what it is.
right.
She's obviously pretty powerful. And we know that something happened 350 years ago that caused them to shut down their borders to the rest of the world, and we don't know what it was. So very interesting. I will be keeping my eye out for any more information that we possibly get on that, even though I doubt it will be anything until the
Right.
next books. I don't remember them even talking about Miriyam and Drakkon in Court of Silver Flames. So very interesting. But in my opinion, that is the first time I've heard someone referred to as a witch that wasn't them calling Nesta a witch because they're like, she's different. That's the first time that someone said it in a way that I was like, wait a second, are they a witch? But anyways, guys, so let's go ahead and get into some theories that are a little bit more fleshed out. I will go ahead and say that this is where we were going to start involving other books in the Sarah J. Maas universe. So thank you for staying with us this far. If you have not read all of the books in the Sarah J. Maas universe and you don't want anything to be spoiled, this is your morning to leave, okay? We're talking about all the books, including the newest release, The House of Flame and Shadows. So we will be touching on events that occur in all 3 series starting now. All right.
Yay. Okay, first thing I want to say is just a connection, but I literally was freaking out because in chapter 64, Rhys says to Feyre, you do not yield.
Who else doesn't yield?
I was like, okay.
Yeah.
No, because I was like, no, Rhys has no shit.
Dude, he knows something.
Rhys has no shit.
That's passed down.
Oh.
What if he's read the story of Elain and them? What if I don't know. What if it's like one of his books in his library is like their story or something? Because it just does not, like, that's such a specific.
It's just interesting
statement.
too, because he obviously knows about Elain too, because of in Silver Flame, or in Kingdom of Ash, also at the same time as Silver Flame.
Yeah.
Like, he helped stop her from falling. So I'm like, okay, no, he definitely knows more than what he's telling people. I'm just like, but why? Anyway.
Rhys, man.
Y'all stick with me. This is try to word this correctly. Obviously, in these chapters, we meet Briar. Okay. And we know there's another Briar in Throne of Glass. In Throne of Glass, Briar is a Blackbeak witch who is one of the 13. She is a pair of twins, and she's known to be one of Manon's shadows with her twin. She has white hair, but she ends up dyeing it black in the book because she's like, well, I need to like be part of the shadows. But I think it's with Ash, she might dye it back white or something to blend it with the snow. Anyway, she's also part Vogue. I just want to point that out. And she has blue eyes and moon white skin, okay? And the only thing we know about Briar and ACOTAR is that she has black hair and moon white skin. So there are similarities already, like same name, same hair color, same skin color. Couldn't really find any like fully fleshed out theories about Briar and like why she's Prithian. But I did see a lot of theories. I don't know how I feel about this, about Briar and Tamlin potentially being made.
I've seen those too.
Which the only thing I could find of why people think that is because the name Briar literally means thorny bush of wild roses.
Mm.
And when Rhys goes to the spring court in, I think it's Frost and Starlight, and Tamlin's not doing well, he says something to him about a briar of roses.
Mm.
And then also people were thinking that maybe like Tamlin had some inclination to go and help Feyre because Briar's actually his mate. And it would be like a full circle moment because it's like she's helping his potential mate. He's helping her. And also we do know that he's not opposed to falling in love with humans because like right now Briar is a human from our knowledge. But that's really like the only thing.
That's really interesting. It makes a lot of sense why, if she's part Vogue or something beyond human, she would be able to survive the torture where the other two children of the blessed did not survive. And then also, one of my favorite theories about just Briar and what could have happened is very much involved with the big 13 scene at the end of Kingdom of Ash. Oh, one of the saddest things I've ever read in my life. I still tear up when I think about it. But the theory is that what if when the witches in Throne of Glass do their yielding, it's literally opening up a portal into another world, basically. So I have feelings about this because on one hand, it's like I have stated many times and meant it about how it bothers me how many times in these books people die and then end up not actually being dead. I understand that these are immortal beings, but it starts to lose its punch and its, authenticity when it's like you kill people and then 2 seconds later they're back. And when I say that this scene in Kingdom of Ash ripped my heart out and stomped on it, I mean it. Like, I was not okay. I had to set my book down. I had to walk away. I was like crying. I didn't have anyone to talk to about it. And I was just like, oh my God, I cannot believe I just read that. And I still, when I see the quotes and the videos and like the homages, it brings me to tears. So on one hand, I don't want that to have been like for naught. But on the other hand, it is a really interesting theory that if instead of dying, they're literally opening portals into other worlds, and that's how Briar ended up here. And she became a Children of the Blessed or Blessed to try to get to Prithian. Like, she ended up on the human side and she's got this connection. I don't know. It's just like really interesting if that is the case. I find it really hard to believe that there is just happens to be 2 Briars in these universes. What are the chances? Unless Sarah J. Maas really did want to run with the name Briar means thorny bushes of roses or whatever. And so she wanted to introduce that as Tamlin's mate. So like she chose to use the name Briar again after she had already written Queen of Shadows and all that, because these books do come later. But I don't know. I find it very hard to believe that there is a unique name like that, and she couldn't have picked anything else to represent Tamlin if it wasn't a connection to that. So really interesting. And yeah, what if all the 13 are running around somewhere in different universes and shit? That would be so interesting to me.
That would be. And I will say also Cressida, who's not in the 13 in Throne of Glass, but she's still a witch. And there's also Cressida and ACOTAR. So I'm like,
interesting.
I don't know. But anyway, so about the yielding, I was going to bring that up too, because the yielding is supposed to be like a dark light. And when the 13 do it, it's like actual white light. So it's like, it's a little bit different. And that's why it could be almost like the drop in Crescent City. But that's getting a little wild. When I was doing all this, the one thing that stood out to me was when they're back at the war camp, like Briar's seen walking with Zane and more, and Feyre's, I thought she was going to come to Valaris because we were going to take her in. And Moore was like, no, she's going to be at the Winter Court. She'll be fine there. She'll be happy. And it's okay. Like, we don't know that much about the Winter Court, but I'm looking at them a little bit. What are y'all?
What do they
What are
know?
y'all hiding? I'm also like, Moore, why are you so inclined for her to go to the Winter Court? Because she spends a lot of time there too.
It makes me question the whole white hair thing, because if her hair is white and she dyes it black,
Right.
I know that's like a very specific trait of the Winter Court. Also, I feel like they're very shady about who that female with Vivane actually was. Like, Feyre just says like she looked like she could be her twin or her sister, but they don't ever actually give any details about who she is.
What if it's Briar's twin sister?
What I was just thinking.
Oh my God. Okay. Anyway, it made me go down like a fucking rabbit hole.
Yeah.
And it made me get really into the theory that Moore could be a witch because maybe she's like housing all of these witches in the Winter Court or something. Vivane's just like cool with it. I don't know.
Interesting.
But okay, this theory I found and I was just like, no, because this is just like this makes too much sense for me to be like, okay, obviously we have questions about Moore. Everyone in the fucking world does. Like, we don't fucking know what the fuck her power is. It really doesn't make any fucking sense. And obviously there's a reason for it. And I think it's going to be a big reveal at some point. But I saw this theory on TikTok by this girl named Emily Theories. And this person literally goes hard on the theories. I love it. It's so fun.
Nice.
But so this is her theory. I just cliff noted. I'll put in the show notes if y'all want to watch the actual video. It's not really a video. It's just like a photo slider or whatever.
Okay.
But anyway, so she points out the little bit of similarities between Throne of Glass witches and Moore. And I was like, okay, girl, this is amazing. So in Throne of Glass, witches gain their powers from their first bleeding, okay? In ACOTAR, Moore gained her power after her first period, and the book literally says her talking, quote, "And the moment my first blood came, my power awoke in full force."
Okay. Yep. That's so true.
Okay. So one thing that's suspicious, check. This is something that I am like, okay, this theory talked about the wind. And I know we've been talking about the wind for weeks now because there's something about the fucking wind in these books. And in Throne of Glass, Astrid explains that the wind calls to witches.
Oh, so why does Elain hearing about... Okay, sorry, go ahead.
Bro, apparently there's like a whole theory about Elain. I know. And I'm like, oh my God, what if they're like just descendants of... Okay, anyway.
Yeah.
But there's a few times in Frost and Starlight that Moore says that like she just wants to ride on the wind, like whatever. So it's like a little bit less of connection, but like still there. But the wind, anytime I see something about the wind, I'm like, I gotta say something because something about the fucking wind in these books. Okay, obviously this is like the Cropping witches and Throne of Glass are associated with red, which when I think of Moore, I think of red. That's like her signature color. And the Croppins are known to be like wise women. And this person making this theory was trying to say if Moore's power is truth, and that would make her like a wise woman. And I'm like, okay. It's like she could be like a Croppin witch. I don't know. Also, this is the thing that I was like, I will link this also in our bio because I went hard on this theory. But we think the Ouroboros is a witch mirror portal, and it happens to be part of Moore's family heritage. It's an heirloom. Girl, why you have a witch mirror?
That's so true.
Heirloom? Oh my gosh. And then there's so many connections. Kier punishes Moore by nailing her stomach, which is the same fucking way that the Blackbeak Matreon punished Manon and Brandon Ashton's stomach.
That's so true.
Right? I was like, this is intense. And then the last thing I have about this is that we talked about this before too. I know we've talked about this theory a few times. This is more, like this makes a lot more sense now. But Rhys said if all armies fail, he would send in more. And for me, that sounds like she would do the yielding and take out herself and take out everyone else around her. It just makes sense. Yeah.
That is so true because it's like,
girl,
Amryn is technically supposed to be more powerful than her, but she's the third. And what? Such a good point that if all
That
else
means-
fails, I'll send in more. That literally does sound like she would do the yielding.
Yeah, and that means that Rhys knows too.
They're cousins, like it's his family lineage as well. And
Distant,
her
but
family
yeah, but
used to rule the night court. So he would like, I'm sure his family would have certain information about who was there before them.
right.
Mm.
And that also would confirm that Rhys and more could potentially be part Vogue. Anyway.
Huh.
So yeah, that's what I had for today, y'all.
That's a good one. That's good shit.
It was a good one,
Yeah.
right? Dude, it was such a good theory.
Yeah.
I was like, this makes too
'Cause
much
I've-
sense. Like with the period.
Yeah, I've seen people say that about more, but I've never seen that much, like that many, okay, this and this is why.
Connect.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah.
That's really good. I like that. Yeah. And the red, I just feel like that ever since we went to Thiesen's court and they were like, more, everybody but Moore seemed like they didn't fit in here or whatever. And Moore does wear red when everybody else is wearing black and blue and dark, cool night colors. Just like she's always in a statement red piece. Like it just fucking makes sense, dude. That's really interesting.
Oh my God. Wait, just to add really quick, I just went on the wiki page about the Kraken witches, and it says that they're a race of witches, the offspring of Volg and Fey, who once ruled over the Witch Kingdom before falling to the Iron Teeth. The Kraken witches are described as peaceful and beautiful, taking after their Fey ancestors, but are talented and dangerous warriors. You got me at warriors.
Yeah.
You got me at warriors.
Yeah, but
Makes
the only
sense.
thing is, how would she be trained in the way of the Kraken witches if it's not? Because they're a very matriarchal society, like witches in general.
Right.
And she comes from the night court. It has to be part of her lineage, but then how did she get trained and like, how does she know all of this? I don't know. It's very interesting. And then like, why is that why Eris helped her? Because he found out she was a witch and didn't want a witch in his line? Or I don't know. It's just very.
I mean, I don't know either, but it's interesting. I'm really into that theory, and I feel like it's very plausible.
Yeah, it definitely is.
that she's a
plausible.
witch.
All right, guys. And then there's a couple more theories. The next one that I want to talk about is truth teller. So I have one big question about this, and that is like, how did Azriel end up with truth teller in the first place? I have read Flame and Shadow, obviously, and I've only read it once. So I remember it being the twin to the Star Sword and that being the same thing as Gwydion and all of that. But I definitely still have questions about like how Azriel actually became the person to possess this. And it seems like there's questions in the fandom as well. There's not really an agreed upon answer. I've seen people say that Rhys's father gifted it to him. I've seen people think that Moore gifted it to him, which very interesting if Moore gifted it to him. But basically because she is like the truth teller, the power is truth, like all of that. So the one thing that I was trying to put together as I came up on this and was researching is there's a quote in House of Sky and Breath in chapter 73. And it's a pretty long quote, but the part that really matters is it says, your ancestors wielded the horn and another Fey object that allowed them to enter this world. Stolen, of course, from their original masters. Our people who built fearsome warriors and that world to be their army. All of them prototypes for the angels and this one. So that led me to believe that he was talking about the Illyrians, possibly. Did the Asteri create the Illyrians to be their warriors and their forces? Is that why they're so strong, so powerful? And is that why they would have the truth teller in their like possession in their line or whatever? Because they were the traitors to their creators that joined the Fae to overthrow the Asteri 1,000 years before they arrived on Midgard. So were the Illyrians there to help Thea and them overthrow the Asteri? I don't know, but somebody that was the prototype for the angels. The only other person I can even think of that would make sense is the Seraphim, but I don't see how that would fit in with this story and also why he would say prototypes, because I could be wrong, but from my understanding, the Seraphim are pretty much almost the same exact thing as the angels from Crescent City look-wise. I don't know about power-wise and stuff, but yeah. And then in that research, I was trying to think of other ties of what Truth Teller could be and where Truth Teller could have come from. And when we look to the Throne of Glass universe, it gets really interesting because in Crown of Midnight, chapter 6, it says, quote, some legends claimed that when Gavin wielded Damaris, he would only see the truth, and that's why he had been crowned king. Damaris's scabbard was decorated by a few word marks. Everything seemed connected by these blasted symbols. So, we have theorized before that word marks have already made their way into Prythian in the form of runes. And this next quote really solidifies to me that not only could Damaris and Truth Teller be the same weapon, if not Damaris and Gwydion / the Star Sword are the same weapon. In ACOTAR chapter 69, it says, Elaine's eyes widen at the obsidian-hilted blade in Asriel's scarred hand, the runes on the dark scabbard. And again, in A Court of Frost and Starlight in chapter 7, it says, As ran a thumb down Truth Teller's black hilt, the silver runes on the dark scabbard shimmering in the light. So, we have a weapon that is called Truth Teller. We know that Damaris glows and alerts people to what the truth is, like when they speak the truth in the Throne of Glass world, and that it allowed Gavin to see the truth, which is why he literally got his power. It just so happens that this weapon only has it's very simple. It only has an eye, and then it has a few word marks on the handle, whereas Asriel's blade has runes on the handle in silver. Weird. And again,
That's so weird.
that doesn't answer my original question, which is how did Asriel get it in the first place? But now my bigger question is, how did it get here? Because we knew that Thea is how the Star Sword got into Midgard, but if Damaris and this are the same thing, or Damaris and Gwydion are the same thing, how did it end up in Prythian? And also not Illyrian runes being word marks.
It makes sense, because I looked up Damaris on the Sword of Glass wiki, and it says that when Dorian uses Damaris to kill Erewhon, the blade is now black. Mm-hmm. And then also, it's like, okay, we know like when Truth Teller and the Star Sword are together, they make that void.
Portal void, yeah. That's what led me to believe that was the weapon they were talking about when they were talking about your ancestors wielded the horn and another Fey object. It was either the harp or it was Truth Teller.
Okay, this might be like a little bit unhinged. So we don't know how Asriel has it.
No, I thought there was an answer.
Are we told who gives it to him?
No, it's a debate.
It just says Moore or...
It says Moore or Rhysand's father. Those are the two top answers that I saw.
Okay, period. Now, to me, that makes sense because I love this, because I feel like it goes with...
theory?
It goes with the witch theory, but it could also go with the theory that Rhysand is a descendant of Manon and Dorian.
Oh, yeah.
Because Dorian's family has the sword. Mm-hmm. He used it, it turned black.
But what if Asriel's the descendant of Gavin?
What if Asriel is? I was thinking that too. What if Asriel is? I just looked up really quick, just like their physical attributes. That Dorian is like black hair, sapphire blue eyes. Mm-hmm. That sounds more like Rhys, but eye color, that shit can change.
That's
so
true.
Easy. But
because like Asriel and Cassian have hazel eyes, right?
Yeah, they do. They both have the same eye color. I don't know. I feel like low-key more on the side that maybe it's Rhysand that is the descendant of Dorian, because their magic seems to be more... They have more similarities with their magic. Where Asriel maybe is a little bit separate from that. Asriel's power is his siphon.
That would also make sense based off of what we know from House of Flame and Shadow, because if we know that he is actually the descendant of Thea and Selene, so we know that if they had the truth teller originally, because they would have been the ones that had Gwydion and the truth teller, it would make sense if they got it from him to begin with. So if that is how it passed down the line, it's like from Gavin, somehow ended up here. Thea had it. It went to Celine. Celine brought it back. She used it as the key to get to the shit in the prison. And then she passed it down the line in her line. And then Rhys's father gave it to Azriel at some point for being his spy master. Because the thing about it too is, I believe, is that's how Azriel is such a great, like, effective interrogator and stuff. He knows when he's being lied to. So if you're Rhys's dad, wouldn't you want to give something like that to the person who leads your interrogations and stuff?
Yeah. But then it's a question of, what if it's more that gave it to him? And maybe
if it is more, then yeah. But I think that the bigger thing is that's just deduced. There's a line in Frost and Starlight. I think this is why people deduce that Moore gave it to him, because Feyre is questioning about what gift to give Azriel for winter solstice. And Moore says something about, like, I can't give him any more daggers. He never uses them and leaves them. And Feyre's, do you expect him to leave Truth Teller? And she's like, no. And I think people from that interaction gathered that Moore is the one who gave him Truth Teller. But it's not explicitly said on the page. It's definitely like an inclination. Like, I guess I could see how you would get that, because she talks about how many daggers she's given him over the years. But she doesn't say, I gave him Truth Teller. It also would make sense because Moore's power is truth. It would make sense if she was the one who had Truth Teller. But again, at least from what I could find, and I searched, but it doesn't explicitly say Moore gave him Truth Teller. I couldn't even find where the deduction that Rhys's father gave it to him came from. I don't know. But yeah, I don't know. It just, the whole thing was very interesting to me.
I love that, though, because it confirms everything else I fucking believe.
It's just really, really interesting. And it's like, I mean, we've been saying that the people from Prythian came from Aurelia, like those lineages. We've been saying that the people in Throne of Glass are the ancestors of the people in Prythian. It's definitely a thought process that we've talked about before. Truth Teller being Damaris, like that just, I'm sorry, that makes sense. If not Truth Teller, like I said, Gwydion, which we know is the counterpart to Truth Teller. I'm not sure. But, and like you said, it turning black after he used it to kill Erewhon. That's, we know the Truth Teller has a black blade. He says that it's not adorned on the handle, just an eye with some runes. It does make me question if we'll ever get a description of there being an eye on Truth Teller. If I ever saw that, I would be like, shut them. But it's the Eye of Elena. So I don't know, but really interesting connection. Definitely something that caught my interest and put me down a rabbit hole a little bit. But yeah, now I'm almost positive that they are the same weapon. If not, I don't even know what to say. Like, just makes too much sense. And then the last thing I wanted to talk about, and this is definitely more of just a me personal theory. I haven't even seen anybody else talk about this, but we talked about this a few episodes ago. It will be the same episode that Ellie was mentioning earlier about Ouroboros mirror that we talked, or in that episode would be when we talked about this. So if you are interested, it will be linked below if you want to check out that portion. But something that was very interesting to me and just made me think, right? So Feyre, when the bone carver dies, she says, I wondered if the carver had made it to wherever he had been so curious about going. And she says, I wonder if I went to his cell, if I would see the painting that he painted of his death on the wall. Because, you know, he would paint the deaths of people. It's like, I wonder if I would see his own glorious death painted on the wall. And that was why he was willing to help, because he wanted his death to be worthy. Okay, we know in Norse mythology, you don't just get to go to Valhalla, okay? You have to earn your place. You have to die a warrior. You have to die in battle, okay? He asked for the Ouroboros mirror because he wanted to see if Feyre was worthy, okay? It's also known as the mirror of endings and new beginnings. Or not the mirror, but the Ouroboros. The Ouroboros is known to represent basically endings and new beginnings. Ellie likened that to being Yggdrasil. And so if this is the case, if this is all based off of that, okay? Wouldn't it make sense if the Bone Carver wanted to die in battle so he could get on to the next place, which would basically be Val, and he wanted to see if Feyre was worthy of whatever the mirror represents, and that being Idrisil. Also, maybe he plans on seeing Feyre again there. Maybe that was his way of confirming that they would meet again on the other side. I don't know. But also we talked a little bit last week about how when the Weaver and the Bone Carver died, that it's just their physical bodies here. It's not actually their final form, basically, that would pass on. And yes, I don't know. That just really got my thought process because I was like, why did what was the place he was talking about where he said he had been so curious about going? Why he had so many questions for Feyre about what she saw when she died, all of this other stuff, why he's so obsessed with death, but then also why he would have wanted to make sure that he died in battle or had a death that was worthy and not just, oh, I died.
That's interesting because it's definitely a question, like, why did he want her to bring the mirror if it really wasn't for anything? And I've seen like some people like online theorize that, it was just for her to be able to like forgive herself and eventually like, forgive her sisters or whatever. But I'm just like, I don't know about that.
Yeah.
I don't know about that.
He would have to have a vested interest in that still. It would have to mean something for him.
Right.
But if she left it in his quarters, right? She didn't take it with her.
Yeah. Bro, it's not said, but we can assume that's left in the prison because that's the last place it was.
So what if it was a portal? And what if when the Bone Carver got evaporated, it's like the part of him that is not the mortal body, like went to that portal and went somewhere else too. If that is a portal to wherever, that's just a thought. But then also, I don't know, to me, the whole Valhalla, whatever the equivalent of Valhalla is in these books, being why he wanted to make sure that Feyre was worthy. And then also himself, when she says, would I see him paint his own glorious death on the wall? Is that why he volunteered to help? Because he wanted to make sure he had an honorable death, basically. That just sounds like Norse mythology to me. I don't know. Something that I picked up on, not necessarily anything, like I said, that I found any kind of cosign on the internet or anything like that. It's just the thought that I had when I was reading this chapters combined with what we've been talking about with these books.
Interesting. I have so many questions and I hope that we get answers.
Yeah. At this point, I'm skeptical that even if we do get the next book, that all the questions that I have answered, it's not going to answer every single question I have.
Literally, only like a few of my questions got answered in Flame and Shadow.
And
they were pretty much confirmed anyway.
Right. And I got left with like 1,000 more.
Literally. I'm like over here, okay, cool. Confirmed that Nessa is probably going to take over the Dusk Court. That was obvious. Confirmed that the Horn is the fourth item of the Dread Trove. Cool. Okay, but why does Ruin look exactly like Rhys? Why did no one notice that?
They tie that to the whole Starborn line situation. That's what I think was supposed to be the answer for that. But they never explicitly say it, and it doesn't really make that much sense. And then also Bryce being descended from the Dusk Court, that was all but confirmed. Everybody, like, that was like damn near canon going into it. So that was no big reveal.
Mm-hmm. And I'm also, again, like you said, left with more questions about it because I'm like, but what you're saying is like basically that Rhys knows about this. And I'm like, okay.
Yeah. Because it's like, it's a secret that's been passed down from Son of the Night Court to Son of the Night Court. And it's like, okay, I could totally see Rhys knowing about this, but why is it a secret to the rest of the fucking world? And why, when Bryce showed up on his doorstep, did he not take that opportunity to bill everybody else in? Especially when she showed up with Gwydion / the Star Sword and then stole Truth Teller.
Also, it's like, again, there might be stuff happening off page. You would think that maybe Rhys would tell Feyre a little bit of this.
These books are not from her point of view anymore. So I guess if he did tell her, it's like, how would we even know if they didn't reveal it? Because Feyre really was on the back burner in House of Flame and Shadow. And she started to be on the back burner in Silver Flames because she was tied up with her pregnant. And then in House of Flame and Shadow, it's like they barely even mention her. She's off raising Nick somewhere. And so it's definitely more centered on Nesta. Even Elain doesn't really get talked about in House of Flame and Shadow. So it's
literally no. She's not even.
that's what I'm
in it.
saying. Like it's all Asriel
I mean, it's really
and Nesta, and then Rhys a little bit in the beginning, and Amryn a little bit in the beginning. Which Amryn, bitch, what the fuck are you hiding? What the hell are your secrets? That being said, we do hope that you guys enjoyed our discussion today. It was a fun one, a fun episode, a lot of really big events, and we're not done yet. We have another action-packed episode next week. So in our next episode, we will be finishing the book with chapters 73 through 82. Please take some time to email, DM us if there's anything you guys want us to talk about in our upcoming episodes after that. Like I said last week, we will be taking a break for the month of September, and then we will be coming back in October with some new content. We're going to be taking a break from deep diving these books for a while. So if you have any suggestions on other book series we should check out, other books we should review, concepts or episodes, anything you want to see or know about us, please let us know, whether it's in the comments, through email, or DM us over on our Instagram. We would love to hear from you guys. If you are still listening and you made it this far, please make sure that you have liked this video, drop a comment below, and make sure you're subscribed to the channel. If you're listening on a podcast platform, take some time to review and rate the podcast. It helps us out so much. You don't even know. And it just makes our day when we see that we got somebody involved. We love interaction. So please, it means the world to us. Either way, share us with your other bookish friends, other people that are interested in these kinds of romantasy series. We have a ton of fun doing this. And lastly, give us a follow over on our socials. We have tons of content over there, different types of content. You definitely want to check it out. And yeah, thanks, guys. As always, we're going to go ahead and end with a quote. And so today's quote is, "You do not fear. You do not falter. You do not yield. Remember that you are a wolf and you cannot be caged." All right. Bye, guys.